it is time to introduce our first speaker, Jurgita. And Jurgita is a culture, values, and leadership organizational consultant. Jurgita's consulting projects have been carried out in Lithuanian and international companies in the following sectors as energy, finance, logistics, IT, law, hospitality, non-profit organizations, government agencies, and educational institutions. Yeah, so welcome, Jurgita.
Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm glad to participate today in this webinar and to be invited. And as you heard, I'm not really an expert on a hybrid workplace, but the hybrid workplace issue started coming in dialogue sessions about culture in organizations, in supervisions with executives, when something what happened in digital space somehow affected the rest of the things which are happening face-to-face or relationships in teams. And I have written an article about hybrid workplace, just reflecting on my experience. And this is how we got connected with Peero on the same topic. So no one knows how it has to be. There are no recipes. We are living in interesting times. So let's try to explore together and think about that, okay? Wait a moment, I will share the screen. Can you see it?
Yes, everything is good.
So I was thinking about a framework which would help me to think what is happening. We used to have offices, physical space. There are even managers in companies who are planning and taking care of physical facilities. This is part of the workspace, part of the culture. Also, part of the culture is how people communicate there. So this was before COVID. And it's important not only to plan the workspace, but also it's very important how people inhabit the space, how they find their place, bring their stuff, how they communicate in there. So here we are touching a little bit upon those physical and social, but what's interesting, for example, the author of this framework, Poutanen, is outlining that it's also very important how people imagine workspace. So we can understand that people who meet together and work in the same floor and communicate near the coffee machine could have a little bit more similar imaginings what they think about the workplace. And it is important because if they think that workplace is an aggressive place, it has an impact on their decisions and how employees work. If they imagine that workplace is a caring place, so this is also impacting their decisions. And now we have the third space, the digital space, which is also a workplace. And as we join together today in Teams, we have a quite fragmented view of the screen. And if we work together only in a hybrid way or remotely, as some teams work, you can try to imagine how different symbols about organizational workspace people have in their mind. So organization can become very fragmented, and how you manage the workspace. And what is interesting that when executives talk about the teams, they understand what is the territory that they managed in terms of function that they manage, in terms of department, sometimes in terms of floor in the office. But it is very seldom that they have in mind that digital space is also territory which has to be managed. For example, I would like to share a story of a team leader who is team leader of a retail store. Retail store is working 24/7. And this team is having a Facebook Messenger group where they are communicating. And this executive brought work dilemma which started in the Facebook Messenger group. It used to be a very nice group for communication. But all of a sudden, the group was started to be used. The team was working in shifts. The team members, after their shift, started making pictures of something which was left in previous shift in a bad shape, not clean, bad quality. So they started to make pictures and to post into Messenger group. And it occurred that mainly members who work older, longer in this company, started doing this for members who are younger and recently joined. And it raised a big tension in the team, and someone was thinking even of leaving and refused to join team building session. So this is just a digital space. So this is just a territory where no one knows to whom it belongs. But this is the question, how this space has to be managed, because it is part of team's work, and it is part of workplace, and also making impact on culture. I thought, before this webinar, I went through different reports and surveys from Deloitte, Gallup, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I thought, and I saw that there is one theme which is emerging when we talk about hybrid workspace, and in general when we talk about trends of employees, how it will look in the future. And there is one trend which you can find almost everywhere, that focus on well-being and focus of managers on people is increasing very much, because there are hypotheses that we did not recover yet from COVID, and that there is high level of stress. But also, if we think about the context where we live right now, it is very uncertain and dynamic. There is digitalization going on, war is going on. We don't know what will happen with artificial intelligence. We don't know how we will transit to this hybrid workspace. A lot of people are anxious about the inflation, what will happen. And this is all things which makes impact that managers are managing anxious workforce. And I thought also, what could be the way for me to talk about it? And I took the report from Gallup, which is called Employee Burnout Causes and Cures. And what was interesting, that top causes of employee burnout are all causes connected to how managers manage their employees. And I would like to go a little bit through them, but more thinking about the hybrid workspace. And one of the first causes of burnout of employees is named as unfair treatment at work. And when we talk about the hybrid workspace, actually, there is a lot of choices, it seems, in the beginning. That you can choose to work remotely, you can choose to work from office, you can choose to work in a hybrid way, and all the workforce now is really valuing flexibility, freedom of choice, but is it really for everyone? What about employees who are in engineering? What about the case that I told about employees in retail stores who are all the time on site? What about logistics industry, about employees who are all the time on site? And here we come about really unfair treatment. And for example, I would like to outline the case when organization employed project manager to run really complex projects in logistics infrastructure. And manager was very disappointed because for this project, she needed input from engineers who work on site. And she was not able to get it. And I heard from her this frustration, but at the same time, in another workshop, I heard the voice of engineers who work on site. They were angry on the office people because no one cares how they work. Very seldom someone is visiting the site. Very seldom someone from office is going really to establish a relationship with them, coming face to face. And they felt treated unfairly because most of the working hours they are spending on site, not in front of computer. And if they want to be engaged into organizations communication, or even if they want to take some online training, they have to do this in their free time after working hours. And they are angry about that. And some organizations are really raising these discussions: what is fair for people, what is not fair, and how you manage it. And some organizations, for example, they are paying for childcare for employees who are working on site. And this fair and unfair, it is also about agreement: how many days in a week you will work from home, how many days in a week you will work from the office. Because fairness, it is the interpersonal value, and everybody has their own imagination what is fair, not fair. So I really encourage teams to discuss inside of the team what is fair in current moment for the whole team, and to have an agreement about that. Another cause of burnout is unmanageable workload and unreasonable time pressure. And here we also have a question: when we use a digital space, which doesn't have hours, it's open 24/7. Are we posting there all the time? Do we have some limits of time when we communicate there and when we not communicate? How often we need to react there? When you are in the office, it's a little bit easier, but when you have digital space, maybe it's 5 of them. Are you able to be in all of them? No, it becomes unmanageable. So one of the most important topics which is raised, that it's very, very important for employees that managers would prioritize what task has to be done, in what time has to be done, what is priority, what is not priority, because it's impossible to be everywhere, every time. It's an illusion. And it's also, the survey reveals that it's unreasonable time pressure. Somehow we start to imagine that we can do everything, that there is no time boundaries, that there is no limits of budget, that there is no limits of employee resources. There are. So it's important to work within those limits, not to burn employees out, and also to manage expectations and ambitions. That when employee enters organization, also to agree what kind of work it will be. Will it be on-site or will it be remote? If it's remote, what will be working hours? And so on and so on. And also talking about ambitions, that we live in very speedy, dynamic times. It's important to think all the time whether ambitions are reasonable. So you can have ambitious goals, but they have to be realistic. If it's not, many employees are leaving their ambitious organizations. Another thing of top causes of burnout is unclear communication from managers. And research says that it's not so much about internal communication. It is very much about communication from manager, which is needed to perform the task. It is when we do not meet face to face, when we do not see colleagues, when no one gives us history, how it was, and what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. It's very important to think together about what is needed to implement the role, what are the boundaries for the role, what kind of task is perceived as a well implemented task, and what kind of task is perceived as extra mile task, and to have a common agreement on that. And very often I hear from executives and from employees in organization that this is obvious. What should we talk about? Nothing is obvious. If it's obvious for you, invite your colleagues and your manager, share their imagination, how employees imagine how a well-done work, well-done task looks like. Try to do this. You can be surprised. It's very important to put on the table all these imaginings, and quite often to check whether you have a common view, and to synchronize and to calibrate. And if you work in a hybrid way, you need to do this more often. And there is one more important task of the role of the manager, especially when we talk about managing anxious workforce, this well-being at work. Everywhere it's outlined the importance that it's very important for managers to develop their emotional intelligence, to develop their ability to think psychologically, to see people, to have a good awareness of themselves for managers, but also to be curious, to learn, and to have awareness of their employees. Because if they have it, if they are able to find the person where personality matches the role better, this is also increasing effectiveness at work and decreases, so to say, danger of burnout. So this would be causes of employee burnout, which are very important for well-being at work, that if to go through them from hybrid work perspective. But I also would like to share with you challenges for managers. Deloitte prepared in April of this year a report, Rethinking the Workplace, Hybrid Work and the Future of Work. And they discuss that the role in organizations which was mostly affected in transition from office to hybrid work, it was a manager's role. And we do not yet understand clearly what is this transition. And you can see that challenges for managers are very similar, like for employees. So we could almost say that they are cascading down simply. Unclear expectations, heavy workload. So here again, this prioritization topic comes in, and so on. So if you would go through them, you can read a little bit more in the report. But additionally, what I would like to outline, what is very helpful in working in a hybrid way, it's very helpful to build internal networks of executives so that they could build relationships between them, professional relationships, deeper, and so that they could help each other to work on their work dilemmas, and in this way they could support each other, but also understand better what is changing in organizations, in their organization, how culture is changing, how workplace is changing, how digital space is making positive or negative impact on teams. And for example, all those challenges from digital workspace started coming into supervisions that I facilitate in executives, in groups of executives from the same organization. They come from different departments, and when they share their work challenges and work on them together, their view of organization as a workspace become less fragmented. So then the work of organization is obtaining a little bit more direction and is becoming more effective. And of course, it's very important in culture development. And if you would like to read a little bit more about that, you can find sources at the bottom right corner of the slide. And I'm very grateful for Deloitte that they made this framework. What are the main 10 themes that you as a manager, for example, managing hybrid team, could go through and think about your hybrid team, how to help the team to become more productive? So first 5 themes which are important in managing hybrid teams' productivity, which are impacting productivity mainly, are these: technology, to agree what kind of technology you use for communication, for task, for planning, for information sharing. Rhythm. Rhythm is helping very much to focus on task. So it can be helpful to plan in advance office days, core hours, hours when you are available and expected to reply to your colleagues, silence hours, some rhythm and meetings that you have in remote days, tasks and goals focus on output-based management, short-term task management, but also calibrate more often what are the key performance indicators that the task that employee is working on task, and how employee can know what are expectations, because one of the most important stressors was that employees cannot guess or are anxious because they don't know how to meet needs of manager, how to meet needs of the role. Then meeting quality, to agree what are the rules of or best practices for meetings, and what kind of topics you are discussing in remote meetings, and how you are using office days when you meet face to face, and what kind of things you are discussing and dealing with in a face to face meetings, and also about customer experience. What skills do you need to work with customers remotely? To have good enough quality for that, but also maybe to think what kind of interactions you do remotely. Like, for example, prospect customer is approaching you and first meeting you are having online. But if the project goes on and the relationship goes into the same direction, maybe later you can have a face-to-face meetings so that you could learn better and your decisions and your services can match expectations better. The rest 5 themes, which are having impact on a hybrid teams work, are the themes which are more about creating belonging to the team, belonging to organization, but also making impact on the culture of organization and all on the culture which is developed in the team. And this is information, how you share information, how you manage information, where you archive information. When you work with a hybrid team, you, even if it's a lot of noise, you need to share information, especially information needed for the task, more often. And it's a challenge actually, because in some organizations, people are really complaining that they are not able to follow internal communication. And when they share the channels that they use, for example, one department is using as a main channel Teams for everything, another department is using Slack, another department is using Facebook Messenger group, add on top intranet, add on top email communication, and you will have very fragmented communication. So how you ensure that the internal communication and awareness of what is happening in the workplace is good enough? So it's also a prioritization question of organization. Not everybody will be happy, but it can be worth to prioritize. Otherwise, it becomes an impossible task for managers and for internal communication team. Then relationships. It's very, very important to use face-to-face time together to build relations and connections. As in that example that I told you, if project manager would visit that engineer on site at least several times, I believe the interactions and work on the project would be much more collaborative. Then why I'm talking so much about team, and now I'm coming to this theme of influence, that we are living in times of very high uncertainty and complexity. And there is no rules or some recipe from previous years how to deal with artificial intelligence, how to deal when war is happening very close to our border, how to deal when you don't know what will be the speed of digitalization. Then it's very important to apply systemic view and to use organization members and team members as a system to make the best decisions. This is why it's very important to find ways to include your team members into decision making, so that they could have the input into short-term decisions, but also into the long-term planning. Every team member has connection to context. So if you hear different voices, the probability that you will have a long-term direction, which is more resonating with the real context and which will be more effective in current context. So engaging the system ensures that you can have much higher productivity and having team members looking into the same direction. And the feedback and development, very important not to be seduced by technologies, to write feedback, feedback in message, to write feedback via email. No, really to have a good quality one-to-one meetings, a good quality positive feedback, also corrective feedback, and to have them face to face. Because we all know that there are things that no one will tell to each other in Zoom meeting. So you need to have also rhythm of how you grow and develop together with team and how you build deeper relationships and give feedback from manager to team members, but also among team members. The peer feedback is also very important. And the last one is shared direction. Even if you have strategy, even if you have a company corporate values, it's very, very important to have alignment sessions, because working remotely, the imaginings, what is the direction of company, what are the values, how we implement those, how you can recognize them in behavior, what is the long-term goal, and how we measure in between in short-term steps if we are going together in the same direction. What kind of rituals we have to collaborate with other teams, not to be just locked in this cell, which is not communicating with and collaborating with other teams in order to achieve better results for the whole organization. So I thought it was structured in a quite nice way in this Deloitte report, and could be a good tool for manager who is working with a hybrid team to have this module on hands and time to time to check whether all 10 themes are addressed. And I thought that you might find it interesting to go through different reports which are providing data from surveys, from qualitative interviews, from different reports from different organizations. I found it interesting when I was preparing to this webinar, and maybe you will want to read them. They are all available online. And another thing, when I think about organization today, I think it's a real challenge, because the individualization is very much growing. Everyone wants to be on her or his own. Everyone wants to make own decisions. Everyone wants very big flexibility. But organization is a community, and you have to sacrifice some individual freedom to really work together and to achieve something more. So it's not just enough to make employees happy and to satisfy all their needs, or to satisfy all clients' needs only, or to satisfy only what organization is expecting from employees. I think that a good workplace is a place where is win-win-win for company, for workers, and for its customers. And if you would like to learn a little bit more, to read a little bit more, there is a more extensive interview in Peero blog, about hybrid workplace. And also there is article in my blog in Lithuanian language, but in our digital era, it's not an issue you can translate, and I think you will find something interesting in there. And I hope that we continue dialogue because no one knows what is the right way. We have to find it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jurgita. And after this webinar, I will send Jurgita's presentation to everyone who have registered. And yeah, for sure, if you will have any extra questions, maybe after the webinar, you can always ask. But at this moment, I see that we have one question about, from all terms in your eyes, which holds the highest importance or is often overlooked?
I couldn't say one. I really recognize and know cases about people who left organizations because organizations were too ambitious, especially startups and hybrid digital teams. Everything is possible, no boundaries, and so on. There are boundaries, and there is a price if you work not taking into account it. So it's about this workload and ambitions. Also very, very much about clarity of the role and clarity of the task. To calibrate. How do you imagine? How I imagine? How we both reach agreement on it? And very, very much about manager's ability to manage people and manager's ability, first of all, to have a good awareness of himself or herself. If manager is not in connection with himself, he will not be in connection with people. And in remote work, it can bring to isolation, fragmentation, divorce.
Yeah. And yeah, so overall, so how about you, Jurgita? So do you prefer this on-site work, remote, on or hybrid, and why? So which is the best in your eyes?
Of course, I prefer, you see, my themes are themes which are not only including logic or rational thinking, such things as culture, values, relationships, group psychology, leadership. They are taking more than this part of the body. So if it's possible, it's good to have face-to-face because otherwise you can be very far from reality. For example, sometimes we are organizing or I work in group relations conferences, leadership conferences, which are very strong focus on group psychology. And I've been working on stuff in Zoom conferences, but also face-to-face conferences. So in face-to-face conferences, you have much more information from body language, from physical surrounding, from smells, and including even the things I remember in one Zoom conference. Only afterwards we found out that one member can't walk, that was participating in a wheelchair. So I think that it's good for manager to know that your team member is in a wheelchair so that you could really give the tasks which is possible to perform. And if you meet only remotely, you can become very far from reality. Yeah. And I think the closer to reality, the better awareness of reality, the better informed decisions one can make. So these are just my thoughts. I am 100% sure that there's no right answers right now. And we have to talk, to discuss, to share evidence and examples. And each team has to find their own way how they navigate through it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jurgita. So yeah, it was a pleasure to listen your thoughts and experience. And yeah, at this moment, I would like to introduce our next speaker. It will be Eva, Squalio HR manager. And Eva have also big experience with work in people during hybrid work, remote work, and with work in Peero. And I believe that she can give a lot of tips and tricks how to do it better. So welcome, Eva.
Yeah. Hi. Hi, everyone, and thank you, Ilona, for the warm introduction. So I will also have prepared some slides, so I will share with you as well. So do you see my slides?
Yes.
Great. So first of all, I wanted to say that I'm excited and honored to be here. Thank you, Ilona, for inviting me. And I really genuinely hope that each of one of you will find something valuable for yourself, maybe your organization. And today I will share a story or my experience from perspective of company Squalio. And maybe quickly, I will outline a little bit about myself and company Squalio. So my name is Eva, and I have been working as HR manager at Squalio for past 6 years. And working here has been an incredibly engaging and dynamic journey for me, definitely. But if we're talking about the company, so the core business for the Squalio is sales. As a company, we are offer several numerous IT solutions, I would like to say so. Technologies as Microsoft, Google products, cybersecurity, IT audits, etc., etc. But nevertheless, I believe we can jump into the subject of the day, which is hybrid work. And I would like to start maybe with challenges. Yes. As also Jurgita mentioned, I totally agree that there really is no playbook or roadmap for navigating the hybrid employee experience. From the very beginning, we were all confused about what to do, what does it mean, and both sides, not only from the perspective of culture, but also from the legal perspective. But nevertheless, as also many other businesses, Qualio is still continuing to progress and search the balance in this journey. And for a lot of companies, I believe the difficulty of implementing the hybrid work model largely depended on the existing infrastructure of the company, but it was not story about the Squalio. A long time before COVID work kicked in, we already had this opportunity to work from home. There was more strict rules about the regularity, but such opportunity was provided. Of course, COVID helped us improve more flexible working hours, this hybrid approach, and yeah, then we start to see this maybe challenges or insights about this hybrid work. Well, also, as Jurgita mentioned, in theory, the hybrid model is win-win situation for employer and employee, but in reality, the adjustment period affected differently our employees in the ways as we couldn't predict. For example, I don't know, working from home seemed like perfect scenario for the parents, but in some cases, it's ended up with overtime and yeah, working after hours and so on. So I would say that our employees and managers were quite quickly adapting to this hybrid work culture. As I mentioned, we had this opportunity before, but with the time and also checking the data from Peero and insights from the Peero technology, we started to observe various feedbacks habits, like new feedback habits, I would say, and noticing also some changes. And I would like to highlight maybe 4 dimensions which are strongly influenced by the hybrid work. Of course, in my opinion, if you will open the internet, you will find that there is 10 and 15 and 20 aspects that hybrid work is influencing in good way and also in a bad way. But if you're talking about the challenges, I would like to highlight culture. Well, our company has grown rapidly recent years. We have several new departments who work 90% from home, some of them 100% remotely. And if the employee is remotely working from the very beginning, how to give him this taste of the company culture, company values, also collaboration. Well, lack of casual communication becomes noticeable. While we are in the office setup, interaction between colleagues, it's natural. Well, while remote work makes it more challenging, building relationships across the teams and departments while working from the home requires effort. So often it involves scheduling meetings or calls. So it is a bit not that natural thing, right? Also engagement. So as well, this physical presence with the co-workers is something that we have been taking for granted. Being in the same space keep us on the same page and reminds us that we are part of the team. And it's in the hybrid work, maintaining a high level of engagement becomes more challenging. I believe that managers may find it tough to inspire the teams. Additionally, if the employee don't feel engaged, they may consider leave the company. So as they are not feeling as the part of the company, and it's much easier to make this decision that I'm leaving and I will work in the different company. And also feedback. So in a hybrid work setup, where some employees working remotely and others are present in the office, communication can become less immediate and direct, and managers and employees lacking of those small connections. Well, as I mentioned, through this journey, a big support and compass, if we can say so, was feedback technology Peero. And I would like to share some insights from the data and maybe the things what allows me and Squalio see the big picture, how this hybrid work influenced our team as well. I would say data, what you are seeing is quite straightforward, but the data illustrates the pattern where employees are frequently providing feedback over the weekends and also submitting feedback before and after the usual business hours. And this pattern suggests that employees could be facing high tasks or workload, or maybe multitasking during their typical working hours, which leads to that certain tasks they are fulfilled later, or maybe during the holidays or in the extended period of the time. And these statistics can be help to us see the departments or maybe the positions where the trend we can find more often. And by collaborating with the managers, we can underline the causes behind this behavior. For example, it can also result in strategic decisions. For example, if there is a workload behind it, then maybe we can open a new positions or hire extra employee, or maybe we can make a decision to divide those work tasks between several team members. So that these decisions can be different ones. So more of statistics also, I believe, quite straightforward. As previously noted, the company was growing, new colleagues and teams were joining, and large number of them were hybrid employees. And in this chart of activity rate, we can see that engagement in Peero system is dropping. So each time period, it's a bit less. So despite that employees are joining the company, the activity in the systems is dropping. So it means that the feedback and engagement with other colleagues or departments is it's less and it drops. So there's a question. So how to involve those hybrid workers in sharing this feedback, communicating with each other, and so on. And also, Peero data is providing this unity index. And here also we can see that certain individuals are receiving a high number of coins, but they are not taking the initiative to share these rewards, which can lead or result in limited collaboration with other team members. And here we can make a question: how to encourage both sides, remote workers and also those who are in the office, participate more actively, how to engage those who are working from home and give this sense of belonging to our company. I will also continue with my favorite statistics, I would say. So it's a collaboration network. I find this analysis of the collaboration network quite fascinating, because what I appreciate is the ability to see the broader perspective or the big picture of the company. So what do we see here? It is the cooperation network of the entire company. So the whole company together, not only exact departments or whatever, but it's the headquarter of this folio and also the other countries. And I will touch shortly the phenomena which we can only see in, well, with the help of this technology, with the Peero technology, because in formal communication, it is difficult to measure, visualize, or analyze. Typically, managers and HR managers have only this intuition. So they know who is informal leaders, who are more isolated, but it is on sense of like feeling. There is no data behind it. And it can be helpful to understand several work dynamics otherwise would be hidden. And what I wanted to highlight is fragmentation. For example, if we're looking overall to this network, there is nothing unusual. It's quite a statistical picture. It's like quite ordinary, but it should be noted that new colleagues in the pink, the new departments, what I mentioned, are fragmented. And the question here is, are they fully integrated into the work routine as they are hybrid employees? So maybe we could think about it more. We could do some actions on this point. Here also in a large department, fragmentation, people within the department are deeply connected. It means that this internal communications is high. The feedback moves easily between them within the group, but collaboration with the other teams are not that strong. So here again, we need to understand in such fragmentation is acceptable, or do we need to do about it? Then there is bottlenecks. You see basically they are a specific one person who are mostly very valuable per employee in the organization. And this person is like serving more like a bridge between several groups or maybe departments or maybe countries. And it's very important to also understand and maybe think about some actions. This person is quite valuable. So what's going to happen if this person will leave? Maybe we need to think about some tasks delegation to other team members in order to divide this high potential, that when this person will leave, there will be a crisis in specific department, for example, or countries. So Latvia is a headquarter, and of course we have like much more functions, much more departments, and the network is tighter. in the company, but one of the countries, for example, we can see that there is a bit tighter communication with headquarters, and one country is a bit farther away from the headquarters. And here we also can ask question. It may be related with the business approach or local independence, but as the many functions or support functions or delivery functions are in headquarters, maybe this country need to be communicating more with us. Also, one thing what I wanted to highlight, you can see that in this network there are points which is bigger, which are smaller, and etc. So the big points are the persons who are the central ones. They are maybe those who are communicating more often with other people across departments. It means that they could be, for example, informal leaders in some cases, but from the other side, we have to consider maybe there is a risk of overload. Maybe this person is a support function. If everyone is going to the specific person and asking something to support them, to help them, maybe we need to review this position and understand maybe there's need to be two persons in this specific role. So those are the insights or the big highlights of what I wanted to share from the statistical side. How can I catch the specific changes in hybrid workers and on-site workers? So let's jump to the next topic, which is onboarding and recognition strategies. So regarding of the best intentions of onboarding process for the newcomers can be overwhelming. Usually it's a lot of information, and particularly if you are having a remote team, it could take longer time to integrate the new employees into the culture, into the procedures. And also in this case, this feedback technology gives to employee a time. He could choose when he wants to share a feedback, and in this specific moment or maybe later, he have opportunity to think through. And it's also crucial that we make this recognition opportunity available for everyone, regardless of where they work. For example, if we are working in the office, I can go to my colleague and say, thank you for this and that. But if I'm working remotely, it could be difficult. And if we are like using this system, it gives us more flexibility regarding this one. In our case, Peero is the core tool to keep our culture and values alive. And during onboarding, I have dedicated a whole section to our company values. I'm sharing the story how our values have born. I also try to set an example and be the first person who send the feedback to new joiners. And it's very important establish also regularity of activities to underline the values. I encourage for feedback exchange, and also I'm sharing the data or insight of the data, because employees like to see the tendencies and also hearing the interesting facts about themselves, basically. And one of our rituals is monthly reminders with different call to actions and slogans. We are usually communicating using several communication channels, for example, the system itself, emails, TV, in office events. And despite the fact that top employees, are visible in the system, we can create additional internal communication about them and highlight them. Sometimes it's also, sometimes I'm also share the information not only about the top employees, but also about who is the closest followers behind the top employees. So to lift up a bit competition spirit and show that, hey, you can beat them, you can be also in this top 10 or top 3 or whatever. So it also gives us a bit of competition energy here as well. In next slide, I will just sharing the example what I share with employees. Yeah, for example, feedback. This is the statistics about us. And here I'm showing to employees how often we are sharing feedback, how meaningful is our feedback, how often we choose send feedback in open messages. So this is also one of the challenges in our side. We are trying to promote and improve send open messages because it is important to build transparent, encouraging environment. And if we are using open messages and open positive feedback, we can encourage each other to say good words, to promote our values, and in the end also celebrate the wins that we have. And here also I have like together the feedbacks and created feedback cloud, if we can say so, and we can see which are the most used words in Squalio. But if you're talking about the recognition strategies, I would like to say that in Squalio we keep it quite simple. I use Peero as a reward as often as possible in national holidays, in big event, yearly events, in small occasions, as quizzes or internal competitions or contests. And for me, as an HR, it is accessible tool that allows me to recognize or reward my colleagues for various achievements without additional big investments or approvals from the board members. And also, I believe it's important that we have annual tradition of celebrating our value ambassadors, announcing the winners, and go deep in analytics. It is crucial that we have this showing this insights to all team, I believe. And also those events are a great opportunity to talk about the values, talk about the feedback importance, engage, and also motivate each other. And however, our data and analytics indicate room for improvements. This is a positive thing, in my opinion, because it allow us to tackle areas of our weakness. And by using Peero, we can identify our value ambassadors, we can improve our employee engagement, we can provide immediate feedback, and also shaping or keeping alive our values, our company values, our company culture, also in this difficult hybrid work mode. And I also placed some pictures to give a short insight, so how it looks like, how Squalio celebrates our culture, our values, and etc. So short insights that we have created the cakes. Of course, we have diplomas, we have those great events. Also, local in the offices, we are giving some small presents. Also, yeah, fun activities. And basically talking over and over again about those important things. What is our culture? What is our values? And I believe that it helps us create inclusive environment. It makes our communication meaningful, and also, yeah, it gives us more opportunity to succeed more, work as a team, and yeah, gain more achievements. I believe so. So from my side, this is it. If there is any questions, I will be happy to answer it. And thank you so much. This is the insights from the Squalio side. I hope that it was valuable for you, maybe.
Thank you very much, Eva. And yeah, Jurgita too. I see that we have passed a little bit time.
Yeah,
and,
sorry.
So everything is good. It was interesting and insightful. So I think that some people are still with us, and I will glad to receive your presentation, Eva, too, because I believe that I could share it with everyone who have been with us today and everyone who maybe didn't join us. And yeah, maybe someone have any questions else to Eva or maybe Jurgita. Yeah, so if at this moment there is nothing, then I will
I
thank.
I had a question. I thought it was a really interesting presentation, and especially interesting this network diagram. And I thought about people who are on the boundary between several teams, which were outlined. So in group dynamics, those are the people who are in a higher emotional temperature zones.
Yes.
So I thought maybe you have created some kind of support which works to support them not to overburn and really to be those who can talk with those several teams and integrate so that they would not split.
Yeah. So it is a challenge. I believe it's a bigger challenge for smaller organizations because most of the time those bottlenecks, how we call them, are people with specific knowledge, or maybe they are one person department also usually. So it depends of the scale of the company. And as I mentioned, one of the opportunities how to low down the pressure or the task is maybe to delegate specific tasks to other departments or divide them, but there is also the cases when we cannot divide because of the speciality of this person or specific knowledge of this person. So it's sometimes it's a challenge.
So what I was talking about the role of the manager who could have time to over talk with this person, the tensions which are raising, or maybe a coaching person to dedicate to this employee to help to support. And the other thing, what I thought that when I facilitate culture dialogue sessions in organizations, recognition is always very painful and desired thing. And when I was watching your presentation, I thought it's nice really to get this peer recognition because it's impossible for manager to recognize everybody enough times and so on. So to have your colleagues who can also support you and recognize could be really good thing for atmosphere, for culture.
I agree. Yeah.
So thank you. And yeah, let's anyway, soon we'll have other webinars too, and we will glad to see you too. Come and listen us and discuss other topics together. And yeah, thank you. And yeah, have a
Thank
nice
you
day
so
then.
much.
Bye.